Hello. So I was in the asset library looking around for interesting stuff, and I found this third-person controller by Emerald Half, which apparently is heavily inspired by Dark Souls. So I decided to check it out. Now, one thing about it is that it's made for Godot 4.0. Now, if you try to download it from the asset library, at least I had problems with it. So I have to go to the GitHub repository, which is this one, and download it from here and then import it as its own project. And that's how I got it working. So yeah, I also added a controls, the input map, joypad controls on the input map. So that's about the only thing that have in addition to what comes with what comes normally with it. So everything else is on its default settings right now, I think. Now let's try checking it out. And so yeah, definitely it's on its default settings. It's made so that it's usually controlled with the mouse. This is me controlling it with the mouse. You can see that the movements are very controlled. But if I use the stick, it it's too sensitive to the stick. Of course, that's not really a problem with the character controller itself, because this is a demo for the character controller. For what I could read, uh, and I'm going to open the character controller scene so that I can change the camera settings, which is part of the player controller, of the player scene. So if we look at the scene, what it is, it's just a very basic scene with the geometry for the level. Of course, there's a light and the world environment, but it's pretty much all that it has is the geometry and the player template. So the player controller, this is what the the main thing of the demo is, which is this scene. And the cam apparently was a cam he took from another project, and he simply, why, I'm not really sure if it was something like that. I'm not really sure. But I'm going to change the joystick sensitivity to like 7. I think this worked fine. And let's save the scene. So it now should be okay. So let's try the scene. Right, this is much more control now. Definitely. So now that we can properly use the camera, let's play around with the controller. It normally walks, but there's also a button for running. There's a jump button, and there's an attack. There's Sadly there is no, you cannot control the speed of moving, but that's something that can easily be added. So you only walk at one speed and run at one speed. But The stick actually goes into our directions, so it's not exclusively 8 directions, even when the default controllers are on WASD. If you put the controllers on a stick, you will be able to see that you can go. Let me see if I can. Right now, everything looks parallel, so I can move side to side, of course, up. But you can also see that I can vary how much to the side and up I can go. I can go a little bit up, a little bit more diagonal, a little bit more towards more higher. So yeah, it has analog controls in that you have more directions of movements than just 8. So it's like probably I don't know if it has the full 360 degrees of direction, but it pretty complete. It's pretty intuitive in terms of being able to move to whenever you want. I will say that probably controlling the speed is the main improvement, and maybe using the. I wonder if the animation is based on speed, and I don't think so. But it uses an animation tree, so it should not be that hard to create analog controls and be able to control it that way. So that depending on how far you press the stick, if it's going to walk or run, or do, of course, a slower run and then a faster run. That is how it works in Dark Souls, for example. Now, I don't think, obviously, he went for a one-on-one Dark Souls. It's just probably a little bit inspired. But one of the things that it has is, uh, okay, you saw that? That's the dash. And I guess the roll to what will be a roll in or a dodge in Dark Souls. It's a little bit finicky, a little bit hard to do. But the animation doesn't seem to be playing, so that's something we should look at. Of course, like I say, it's a Godot 4.0 project, so there's probably some incompatibility when you import it and change. Another thing that I not too fond is how the aiming system works. It has an aiming button, but what it does is that it rotates the character towards whatever the camera is looking at. And of course, that's even if you are looking from the top down, it's going to rotate that way, right? So in Dark Souls, for example, when you press DM, well, a button like this, it will go behind the character. It will be the camera the one that will travel behind the character. Now, if you move like this, you sort of strafe and you can aim, but then you but it's still weird because even in Uncharted, let's take for example Uncharted, if you're looking that way and you press the aim, well, actually, I don't remember if the camera will go behind you or it will. I think that it depends on the game, or the character will aim towards the camera, towards where the camera is. is looking at any point. Well, but in the Dark Souls games, we know that it works the other way. The camera goes behind the character, so that's more of a preference on and the type of game you would like to make. Now, one thing is that this doesn't really have slopes, so let me add slopes using the same geometry. Let's see if we can do some makeshift slopes. Like maybe yeah, let's duplicate this one. And make sort of a slope here. Let's see how the character deals with the slope. Let's see how the character deals with the slope. Now this seems to be a very steep slope, so it might not be able to. Right. But okay, so it doesn't even go into a walking position. So let's make it less step. Less step. Of course, if I'm not mistaken, this is based on character controller 3D. So there may be an option for slopes and that such a thing. So yeah, okay, you can see that it's lower when going up slopes. Maybe maybe too slow. But for the most part, slopes also seem to work. Of course, this controller is more of a sort of base or beginning point, of course, so that you don't have to make everything about it. But let's go to the character template. So the character, of course, is based on it's not obvious here, but if we look at the script, it's based on a character body 3D. And of course have a collision shape and the animation tree. Here let's look at the roll. Right, the roll doesn't have an animation. Walk, idle to fight, dash. Dash. Let's try that animation and let's see how it looks like. Oh my god. So yeah, the animation seems to go back to the beginning position when. Hmm, well, that's interesting. Definitely, there's a need to tweak that animation. There's what it should be doing. And maybe it's because the original animation also moves forward instead of staying in place doing the movement and you controlling the movement through the game. The movement forward when sliding is also part of the animation. So that is something that needs to be tweaked. But that might be a problem with the animation itself and not necessarily. So the animation is it an animation player? Let's look at the animation of the animation player. So so yeah, they are. So we might be able to fix that. Where is the dash? Okay, here's the dash. So there has to be a movement or something that is making it move. Like a position. Hmm. Well, it's not obvious. That's for sure. Food position. Is that the only one who has a position? Okay, so how about we just remove that one? And which one is this one? This is a scale and this is a rotation, okay? So, yeah, we're learning the language of the colors. I don't have that much experience with 3D animation in the animation on how Godot does the animation. So let's see if it now stays in place by removing that position. No, it's still doing the same thing. Okay, so let's look. There's a roll attack too. That's probably the kick. So let's add the kick. And do we have a big attack? Flight kick. So the big attack is the running attack and the roll. So we have pretty much the same for a roll attack and a kick attack. So let's see if I'm running. Okay, that's so normally this is an attack. This is the normal attack approach. And you can do it twice. And if you look, after two times it goes back to the normal position. So it's like a two-hit combo. And you can see that on the animation tree. If we look at the animation tree, it has attack one, attack two. So it can go to a second attack, but then it will automatically go to idle. So let's check also for the dash attack. Oh, there you go. So the dash attack is a kick, of course. We put the kick as a dash attack. So yeah, you can have running attack. So there's a lot of functionality for this controller, aside from whatever is causing this problem. Is that the and it seems that the animation for is the one that is just going forward too much. And then because if you look at the camera is still following the position of the player. So, is the mesh the skeleton, the one that is going back to the position? That is weird. I don't know what is causing it. I try changing a couple of things, but obviously that's the kind of thing that you will have to have a much closer look at what is happening. So for the most part, it is a very functional third-person controller with a animation tree and everything set up so that you can do combos, combos, and even special attacks by you know having certain conditions met. So overall, is a pretty feature complete. Obviously, it's more of a starting point, and well, it's a little bit disappointed that the aiming well is weird. I guess it's a third person shooter aiming, and also the dash. The dash is weird. The dash is weird. How it, how it's moving around. Yeah, and it's a problem with the animation because it doesn't do it if you do not have the animation. If we take maybe that's the reason why it didn't have the animation at the start. Because if we go to animation tree and go to roll and remove dash, now the dash moves normally. You can see because it stops completely moving. It's like paralyzed. It's like paralyzed. So it's something with the animation in particular, with that animation in particular. So let's try another animation. Let's see how it looks. That looks goofy. So definitely, I will say something in particular with the dash animation. That, but if we look at the animation, it doesn't move forward on the animation. So what is causing it to move forward? Because it's definitely not moving here. It's not like moving. It's not like it's moving forward. So I think it's something with the dash, but it might not be. I don't think it's something with the idle, or I wonder if it has to do with the transition itself. Let's remove this X fade time. Definitely, I will need to look more. Oh my god. Now it became even worse. That's a mystery to me, but overall, besides this particular bug, that is obviously something that will need to be squashed if you are going to use if we were going to use this controller. Definitely, I will say that it is pretty complete. It's a starting point. I'm not really sure if I will call it a good starting point, but it's a starting point. Definitely. And it has lots of things going off. You can do combos, you can do lots of things. The the animation trees are already set up for lots of functionality. And it can go through two slopes and most geometry, so it can navigate things really well. So it's pretty good. It's okay. It's okay. So yeah, that was it. Thank you for watching.